Now,
on News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
O'Connor and Company.
It is 7:06. It's O'Connor and Company on this Friday morning. It is Friday, and we are in love. We're in love with you for tuning in and being part of our day every day. Thank you for letting us do that. We don't thank everyone out
Our
there
listeners.
enough, Patrice.
Thank
honestly.
you all.
They are. I'm so grateful that
Yeah.
they're there. And whenever we get to meet them, whenever we go out and do things, it's just so great to hear from them. And
On Twitter, social
yes,
media.
keep reaching out to us on social media. We love that. Coming up in 30 minutes, Andy McCarthy, former Assistant U.S. Attorney, talking about these indictments and his very grave doubts about their legitimacy. 8:05, Representative Ben Cline of Virginia. At 8:35, Ian Pryor out of Loudoun County will be joining us. The latest there. Oh, we're also going to check in with Vince Colonnese's producer, our pal Corey Ignanamort. I practiced his name like 20 times. I love Corey. He's a good friend. And he's vacationing in Puerto Rico for a wedding that he's attending. And who did he run into down there? Randy Weingarten.
Oh.
And if you know Corey, you know he went right up to her.
Nice.
And we're going to hear all
Can't wait
about
to
that
hear
close
it.
encounter. So that's coming up in a bit. All right. I want to hear from you about this topic, if you don't mind. 888-630-9625. 888-630-WMAL. If you're a parent and you are sort of doing your retirement and legacy planning, and you expect to have some level of inheritance to pass down to your children, are you having some strategy, rethinking of your strategy in terms of that money, whether it's going to last, whether you're going to have enough for them? Are your kids starting to actually reach out to you and say, hey, it's very prodigal son, right?
Oh, yeah.
Could I have my inheritance now, please?
Yeah.
So I don't have to wait, right? Things like that. And by the way, if you are the kid, if your parents, has sort of
paying
told
for
you,
your stuff, yeah.
hey, just so you know, you're in the will and here's what we're going to do. Like my parents, my dad has sort of laid a lot of things out for me and my brothers to let us know what to expect and what his planning is. But at the same time, medical emergencies can change that stuff. But this is the stuff that you reach a certain age, whether you're the child or you're the parent, this is the stuff you're thinking about. And there's a great article that you found, Patrice, at CBS Market Watch. The headline, "My sibling borrows hundreds of thousands of dollars from our parents. Should I take my inheritance now before it's all gone?" In other words, you're expecting this inheritance. Meanwhile, your good-for-nothing brother, who's, never had a real job and keeps spending and going to Vegas and buying stuff that he can't afford, he keeps asking mom and dad for loans.
Money. Yeah.
There's not going to be anything left for you. Is it better to get your money now? I find all of this very unseemly, but I'm interested if you've been in this situation. 888-630-9625 on the giving or receiving end. 888-630-WMAL.
Yeah, this caught my attention. So let me read a little bit of the letter. Dear Quentin, and the Market Watch person, his name is Quentin Fortrell. He answers this, but the writer says, one of my siblings has been having cash flow issues, excuse me, and asked my family for help. He lives at home. Has no college degree, which that's not an X mark against anybody, but has abused other family members' credit by racking up debt, not resulting in late fees and interest, even borrows money without repaying it.
Apparently, his name is Flunterscheiden.
Yeah, something that rhymes like that, right?
Yeah, something like that. It sounds familiar. Okay, keep going. We've all got one of these in our family.
Once a family member was berated for asking for their money back. Once in a while, this person uses money to buy cryptocurrencies or invest in a business and later claims that the business was not successful. Our parents have now given out hundreds of thousands of dollars over the past decade.
Yikes.
So I'm doing fine. I'm working a full-time job, and I understand that our parents' money belongs to them. But should I ask for my money to be given now to me now so that when the money runs out, I'm not left without anything in the bank?
So now we'll tell you what the advice was from the columnist there at Market Watch in just a minute. But I am interested in your reaction to this. And if you're the sibling, if you're the child, or if you're the parent, what do you do or have you done in this instance? I'd love to hear from a parent of adult children if they have been approached by their kids who said, listen, I know that you're planning on, leaving something for me in the will. How about you just hand it over now?
Yeah.
Right? Let me have it now so I can start investing it now, make it grow or buy some things right now. I'll tell you what, you give me half the inheritance you planned on giving me today, and then you don't have to worry about it later. How do you even make that ask? How do you even do that?
Yeah, I think you don't. I mean, you can't do that because this is about when they pass on what they're leaving behind for you.
Yeah.
I get what this person is coming from, but come on now. It seems a little bit selfish, honestly.
This is really a reflection of our times of Bidenomics, but also of various aspects of some kids. Mostly it appears to be millennials who have had a real problem getting a hold and buying things, buying homes, making investments the way generations before them have been able to do. You always, like my brothers and I, my older brothers are boomers. I'm a Gen Xer, but we've all sort of planned. We've been in communication with our dad. We know that he's reaching, the final years. We know what he has set up for his retirement. We've always anticipated having to be there if he needs us.
Yeah.
For hospice care, because you don't always plan for that and all that stuff. We've never really thought that we're going to have a huge inheritance at all. That's not really our life plan. But I guess what I'm saying is we've always expected to be there if our dad needs us. It's the opposite right now. People in their 30s are still getting money from their parents. In fact, according to this write-up over at The Hill, nearly half of parents with adult children are still paying their bills.
To the tune of $1,400 a month. That's a lot on average.
Yeah, it's one that, listen, I guess I got 3 adult children now. Gosh, I forget Christian's 18. I've got 3 adult children.
Yeah.
I still pick up their cell phone because we were all on a family plan.
That's understandable.
Exactly.
That's
not
understandable.
the cost of the phone.
Yeah.
But the
monthly.
bill, the monthly, right? That's one thing. But it ain't $1,400 a month.
That's a lot of. That means $1,400 is like rent, maybe a student loan payment,
Yes.
maybe there are a lot of things that $1,400 can pay.
I ain't helping my kids pay their rent. I ain't helping my kids with their grocery. I mean, if they're desperate and they can you just loan me some money to get us through the month?
They've been out for a while. Okay.
But $1,400 a month, and I hate to put it this way because I have been very fortunate. Trust me, I get it. I know.
Yeah.
But if your kids are needing your adult children, I'm talking like late 20s, in their 30s, if they need $1,400 a month from you, honestly, you may have made a few mistakes raising them.
I mean, I can understand. Yeah. Listen, I can see this happening, especially if that adult child has children of their own and they're not financially savvy, not making good decisions, and they don't have a steady job or income that helps them to support the lifestyle that they need. But I guarantee you those folks know how to go to Baja when they're ready. They know how to go on vacation when they want.
Thank you. Exactly. Hey, Alan in Manassas. You know what, Alan? I didn't even look at the clock. Hold your thought. We'll get you in a second. If anyone else has a story to tell. Also, by the way, this is a really important write-up. Sometimes the New York Times gets it right, especially if it's not political or lifestyle for that matter. They've got some analysis on this, and it turns out giving money to your adult children to help them out because you think they really need it actually ends up being a really bad idea for a lot of different reasons, and we'll share that with you in a moment. And we'll hear Alan and Manassas talk about this in a moment. But first, it's 7:15 WMAL traffic and weather every 10 minutes first on the 5s. Here is Jamie Whitten in the Hadid Carpet Cleaning Traffic Center.
WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Live
From the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
All seasons, all systems, all tech.
I mean, honestly, I think the right way to plan for your... I mean, I know you might want to save money for your kids' inheritance, but our attitude with our parents have always been, you did enough for us. You live your retirement.
Yeah.
Go wherever you want. Make sure you've got enough for you. Don't come asking for money, but don't think that you need to set anybody aside for us. But then there's this phenomenon of kids actually going to their parents saying, "Hey, I want my money now." It's so prodigal son.
It is.
It's. I mean, have
selfish,
we not learned
honestly.
from that? Alan in Manassas. All right, Alan, what's your story? What happened here?
This is Alan, son of Gandalf.
Oh, yeah. Son of Gandalf on Twitter. He's very funny, actually. Go ahead.
So my wife got made the executor of my father-in-law, and my mother-in-law was constantly going back to their home country and spending money and stuff. So all the children got very nervous that there wasn't going to be anything left, and kept bugging my wife about it. And I finally blew up at a family event, and I said, here's how this is going. We're dividing the rest of it up. Your mother-in-law will live with us exclusively, no more. You guys using that as a reason.
Yeah.
She will always have a house and always have a meal, but I don't want to ever hear any of this ever again from any of you. Of course, now nobody talks to my wife and I.
Oh, but you know what? That's a big important thing. I have a vivid childhood memory of when my grandmother died. She was my mother's mother was the first of my grandparents to die. She died tragically young, around 66 years old. But I have a vivid memory as a little kid of her children. And my grandpa was still alive. Her widow was still alive.
Yeah.
I remember my Aunt Barbie, my Uncle Morris, and my mom fighting like cats and dogs over what was over, China, over things in the house, over all. And it's like, it's so ugly after somebody dies, the fights that go on.
Yeah.
Son of Gandalf. So it's good that you got in front of that.
Well, my wife was not happy I got in front of it.
Oh, well.
Yikes.
Yeah, you got to be careful there with the in-laws. But you seem to come All right, Alan in Manassas. Thanks
Very
for joining.
helpful.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. We'll see you on Twitter or X. We'll see you on X.
So, I mean, Alan is great because he actually taps into what the advice columnist
That's right.
suggests should be done. So, if you remember, what sparked this was this question to Quentin: Should I ask my parents for my inheritance now before my sibling blows it all? And so the advice is no. The advice is, okay, start with a family meeting. Get everybody together and then pretty much curse out your sibling and tell them no more money from any of us. Do not normalize this behavior. Your family should not be taken hostage. So no more money. It's time to cut the sibling off. And then number two, don't ask for the money from your parents. In fact, instead, set up a family trust to put the rest of the family money beyond the reach of this sibling.
Yeah.
Do that with an attorney.
Family trust is huge.
Exactly. But the big thing is don't enable this individual and then put the money out of anybody else's reach. So now what happens after the parents pass away and with the trust, then that's probably where there's going to be more fighting. But for the time being.
That echoes what the New York Times says here. Helping to support young adults might seem like the compassionate choice, but it can often do more harm than good. Whether it's a gift or a loan, there's no guarantee that children will give the money back if a parent later needs it. And that's the thing. I got to tell you, I keep referring to my dad because it's very present in my mind right now. My dad is super healthy. His heart is great. His lungs are great. Yeah. His joints are great. I mean, he doesn't have anything wrong with him, except he has Alzheimer's disease. And it's deteriorating, and it deteriorates fast, or it's become exponential. He's 86 years old. And his wife, my stepmother, is 15 years younger. And so we always thought, Jan will be there to take care of my dad, and everything will be great, and everything will be fine. Well, now she's 72 years old. Oh, she's having her own health problems. Yeah. My dad is, he's really healthy. It's great. It's wonderful. But he needs so much care. Yeah. Yeah. And he's going to be around for many more years, thank God. But they didn't plan on any of this in their financial planning. They didn't expect this. And boy, thank goodness we didn't take a ton of money from them. Thank goodness they didn't offer a ton of money because they're going to need every red cent. Yeah. Both of them are. So if you think, oh yeah, we're looking good right now, let's go ahead and give our kids a chunk of money. You don't know what's ahead of you.
Exactly.
That's right. And it's not selfish to use the money that you've set aside for yourself to make sure that you're cared for in your old age.
Well, and I don't want people to think, well, I shouldn't give my kids any money. No, if you want to bless your adult child with money to a down payment for a house, for example, or to help them pay for their wedding, I can understand those expenses, and that might take a little bit of your your nest egg savings down the line. That's one thing. I think the difference here, though, is that the kid who's asking for you to pay their rent for indefinitely, some of those big expenses.
Yeah.
And I think there is a difference. And there's nothing wrong with passing something on so the next generation doesn't start from scratch.
How about passing on good financial skills to your kids instead of money?
Yes, that too. But I firmly believe in generational wealth, Larry. I firmly believe that it's important to pass down. Even if my kids don't need it, I want them to know that they're going to pass something down to their kids. That's what we're trying to do.
Will you be my mommy? It's 7:23. All right, we can.
Now,
On News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
O'Connor and Company.
And before you know it, it's 7:36 as this
Wow,
morning
where did the
just
morning
flies by. It's Larry O'Connor alongside Patrice on WUCA, and joining us later as the morning develops, 8:05 Representative Ben Klein of Virginia and 8:35 Ian Pryor out in Loudoun County. But right now, Patrice, we are joined by Andrew McCarthy. He's a former Chief Assistant U.S. Attorney of the Southern District of New York, and now, of course, writes at National Review. He has his McCarthy Report podcast there, and he's also a Fox News contributor. Good morning, Mr. McCarthy.
Larry, Patrice, how are you?
We're
Great.
pretty
How
good.
are you?
We're pretty good. And we're sorting through all of the analysis of Jack Smith's indictment that President Trump was just arraigned on in federal court here in D.C. Mark Levin's analysis, to sum it up succinctly, the indictment is crap, is how he put it. And yours opinion doesn't seem to be too far off from that. What do you think of what's going on here?
Yeah, whatever the Latin word for crap is, I guess. Look, I think I think the charges are very weak. And I think where I part company with at least some people who are looking at this is I think most of the attention has been lavished on Trump's state of mind and this question of, like, did he really know whether whether there was fraud or there wasn't fraud, or was he being honest when he continued to maintain that he thought the election was stolen when other people were telling him it wasn't? And to me, just as somebody who used to do this for a living for a long time, you never get to the state of mind issue unless you've actually charged crimes. And I'm not satisfied that he's charged crimes. He's got a fraud count in there when, the most recent teaching from the Supreme Court is an adamant reaffirmation that fraud in the United States is a financial crime. It's basically a scheme to bilk someone out of money or property, which this obviously is not. And he's relying in bringing that on some extravagant stretches of what the concept of fraud means that come out of cases from the beginning of the 20th century that I don't think the current Supreme Court would abide. In fact, I think they made pretty clear in May that they wouldn't when they threw out 2 convictions involving cronies of Andrew Cuomo. Mm-hmm. They have a civil rights count in there, which is based on a statute that was designed to go after violence, specifically Ku Klux Klan violence against Black Americans in the post-Civil War era for trying to exercise their right to vote. He's trying to analogize that to Trump's challenges to the validity of votes after the voting was done and after the election. I don't think it's a worthy analogy. And in the middle, he's got a couple of counts that are supposed to be obstruction of Congress. But the thing is, we're all allowed to try to influence Congress. The question always is, in these cases, is the attempt corrupt? And corrupt is another word like fraud that can be twisted and contorted by prosecutors to capture a lot of conduct that, whether we think it's icky or not, is actually not criminal. So I just don't think, I'm not sure he has crimes charged here. And that's a bigger problem than his state of mind.
Well, you've got this National Review piece here where you lay out more of your argument that you're making here. It's anti-indictment and pro-editorial. But I want to hone in on your last paragraph of that piece. You said what you can say what Trump committed were crimes. I certainly thought they were high crimes and misdemeanors for which he should be impeached and disqualified. But there are many crimes that prosecutors do not charge because doing so could interfere with higher public interests. And I think that gets at the heart of why some prosecutors choose to charge certain crimes and not others, and kind of this unequal justice that seems to be meted out, particularly in Washington, but we see that across the country with different types of prosecutors. What do you mean by that? What higher public interest do you see at risk with this indictment, where the charges should not have been, meted out here at all?
Patrice, I think if anything, if we've learned anything from the presidential election cycles going back to 2016, it's that we don't want the Justice Department and the FBI intruding in our constitutionally prescribed electoral process. And the prosecutors, the Justice Department, and the FBI ought to stand down and stay out of politics unless they have evidence that a serious crime has been committed and their evidence is convincing. I'm not saying that like somebody running for president has immunity from prosecution or is above the law, but given how damaging it is to the republic to have law enforcement involved in politics, and especially electoral politics, they should have a very high bar before they intrude. And I think we've seen it's been disastrous the last number of election cycles where they've gotten involved. It's been very bad for the country.
In fact, it seems that they've chosen to move that bar very low in this case in particular, it seems, based on your analysis there, Andy. And by the way, it's impossible not to shoot this through the prism of what we've learned from the U.S. Attorney in Delaware and what his office attempted to do with regard to immunity for the president's son. And what we're now learning, based on the testimony and the transcript we saw yesterday of Devin Archer, the president's son partner, how it involves, it appears, the president himself. I mean, how is an average American citizen to view these things and not think, oh, well, the Justice Department is being used as a weapon against Trump and to protect Biden? That's the obvious takeaway, unless you see something different.
I think it's obvious that that's exactly what's going on, Larry. In fact, the fact that you say we can't close our eyes to what's happening with the U.S. Attorney from Delaware, the fact that it is the U.S. Attorney from Delaware tells you everything you need to know, because in the Justice Department, if there's a serious crime and a profound conflict of interest that prevents the Justice Department ethically from conducting an investigation, you're supposed to have a special counsel.
Yeah.
So they have a special counsel. Jack Smith is a special counsel for Trump, as to whom there's no conflict of interest with the Biden Justice Department, and who, in fact, was being investigated by the Justice Department for a year and a half before Smith was appointed.
Right.
And yet you have this neon blinking conflict with the Justice Department supposedly being in the position of investigating the Biden family.
Yeah.
And that's been a problem from the moment Merrick Garland got into office, and yet he won't appoint a special counsel.
It stinks to high heaven, and you don't have to be a former assistant U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York to see that, Andy, and that's why it's a horrible backdrop for a presidential election, and it's so disconcerting. It puts a pit in my. You worked in those offices. I know how much you revere federal law and the Justice Department, but major reforms need to take place, and I don't see how that happens with the current team that's in charge.
Yeah, I think these last. I mean, look, I've been out for over 20 years now. It's a very different place now.
Yeah.
I think it really started under Obama to become very politicized, and it's just
Agreed.
snowballed.
And the FBI under Mueller, I think. Yeah. Thank you, sir. I'll leave it there.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate it always.
Thanks. Have a good one.
See, this was bad. Last time Andy was on, we disagreed on things. I like agreeing.
Really?
I like agreeing with him much better than disagreeing. But either way, we're still friends, and let that be a lesson to all of us. 7:45.
You've heard the news. Now get the facts. It's the Vince Colonnese Show, weekdays 3 to 6, right here on News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
A disconcerting story out of the United States Navy. 2 sailors have been arrested and accused of passing secrets to China. They're based in California at the San Diego Naval Station. They've accused of passing sensitive national defense information and military secrets to Chinese agents in exchange for money. This included photographs of the USS Essex, They sent a blueprint for a radar system, technical manuals for vessels, operational plans for military exercise in the Indo-Pacific, details of defense weapons to Chinese intelligence officers. Meanwhile, the Navy's response to this was to increase the DEI training for all sailors and officers and make sure that there is room for transgender individuals on every ship. The espionage comes after a 21-year-old airman leaked hundreds of classified U.S. military documents on Discord from the Air Force. You remember that story from a couple of months ago. But those leaks were for to make, well, many people think that those leaks were just to impress his friends on Discord.
Ooh.
This was these spies, apparently alleged spies who were in the Navy, were doing this to help our enemy.
Wow.
To help our enemy. And so there's two aspects of this that everybody should point to. One is that listen, we've always had espionage since literally the Revolutionary War, but our military and Pentagon should be focusing on this and making this a primary objective to make sure that in this environment we're rooting this out whenever possible. And again, you hear from the Pentagon very different priorities right now about, they're more interested in being inclusive than they are about making sure they don't have spies on their ships, it seems, number one. But number two, this is a perfect reminder that China is not our friend.
Yes.
We keep treating, like, if we had if there were spies that were passing secrets to the Soviets, which we did. There was a famous sailor in the Navy who passed on secrets to the Soviets. We had Robert Hansen, who was a FBI counterintelligence official who was passing out secrets to the Soviets.
Yeah.
We had Aldrich Ames, who was a CIA guy who was passing out secrets to the Soviets. The difference is we didn't treat the Soviets like they were our pals. We weren't manufacturing things in the Soviet Union. We weren't treating them like, we have a mutual respect. No, we don't. China is treating us exactly the way the old Soviet Union did during the Cold War, and yet we still pretend like they're pals. And they're not. They're our enemy. Can we start treating them that way?
Well, listen. They're sending balloons overhead to track all of our military installations. They've set up a spy station over in Cuba, one hop, skip, and jump away from the Southern Peninsula in Florida. So, absolutely. And they're sending Fang to sleep with members of Congress. I mean...
only one member of Congress. Eric
that
Swalwell.
We know of.
That's true. I guess Fang could have gotten around.
We don't know. And what member of Congress or former member is going to say, I had a little tryst
she looks
with
familiar.
Fang.
Yeah, that's right.
But in all seriousness, I think you're right. A lot of U.S. companies are so in bed, literally, with China that they don't want to talk about the abuses, much more the national security implications of the United States taking a hard stand. And the person in charge of our foreign policy right now is President Biden. And we're right now trying to investigate his son's ties to
China. Right.
So, at this point, it's laughable when you see a story like this that we are frankly just exposed to China in whatever way you want to call it.
It's time to get serious about China, please. Like, we just told you yesterday about them having an illegal lab in Fresno, California, where they found 1,000 mice infected with diseases.
Oh my gosh!
They are not our